guys have done privately, you know, about, so we can get it in our final report. My name is Jacob Hagan. I'm an engineer with Bolton and May. Been working on this project. We're just kind of going to go over what we looked at and what we're proposing as of right now. So the drainage system that serves the southwest or southeast side of Northwood, and then it goes farther south down to the county park, outlets into the river down south of town. I think the drainage coefficient was around quarter. This one.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at drainage districts, this drainage district's around 100 years old, a little over 100 years old. And there was a small improvement done in the 70s where they cut the district kind of in half and drained it to the river along the road right here. But overall, when we look at drainage districts that were put in around 100 years ago, this one's fairly typical of that, and that it was designed to drain at about a 1/4 inch of water in 24 hours. It was designed to you have a 1/4 inch rain or a 1/4 inch of excess water is able to be removed from the lands within 24 hours. Now, since about the 1950s, the standard has been a 1/2 inch. Iowa State will put those numbers in Northern Iowa needs a 1/2 inch of drainage. The main reason for that switch was due to crop rotation differences. So prior to that, it was more likely let's drain the good ground, and then we convert our swamp ground into pasture ground or into oats or alfalfa crop rotation. Where now it's a corn, soy, sometimes continuous corn rotation. And that's why the drainage district coefficient has changed, and why we see a lot of these 100-year-old tiles now are functioning to the level that we would like to see them function at. So what we proposed, you see your map here, is the red lines with the little red dots. Those are all the existing district tiles that we have record of. And then the blue, or not the black dotted line is our proposed routes. And the blue line is the watershed boundary of the district. After we do it, so on this particular project, so when we do a tile project, cost is a huge burden for tile projects. We're spending $1,000 an acre to put tile on the ground. So we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. And to do that, we've actually broken the district into 4 parts to try to get the water, because if we can put in smaller tile and outlet it in other places, save us money from putting in the large diameter tiles that would have been needed if we weren't able to outlet it in other locations. So I'll just start with, I guess, is there any questions before I get into the routes? Any questions about tile itself, or?
From what I understand, all this going from, I don't know what road this is, north of Keenan, Quarry. Is any of that even functioning?
Down south,
Yes.
we found, so our survey so far has been limited to only intakes and road ditches. We haven't gone out, we don't have a camera to go camera these tiles. We did find there's some intakes in this road, and it looked like there was a tile that even just outletted into the, but as for this tile, we know that there's been blowouts in the county park.
In Keenan's itself, the tile is functioning, but only during flood events. I mean, it has to have the main be 100% full going west before it has to actually surface. So it has to fill the road bit, backfeed through a culvert under the road to get to that intake that goes through the park. And when it goes through the park, it outlets into both pits before it outlets into what's now Falkstone Quarry.
So what happened to the tile that went through the quarry?
Our assumption is it's gone.
The tile that went through the quarry, it still goes down through the quarry, but it gets into Falk's hole and it just is in Falk's hole.
Is that still hooked up?
It's still hooked up, but we've tried to, because of us being low at the 2 quarries there, we push essentially the ability to capture water coming that way in the tile into our 2 pits before it gets to Falk's pit to try and, when we flood, we want water in the quarry. And so that's what, when we flood, we're trying to get it.
Cause I'm under the assumption, I'm new to this, I just bought some property here, but. It just seems like that, when that quarry started, that things got shut off to that somehow that tile got eliminated.
Mhm.
And that's part of our problem, and that's why that tile started. Took a right angle and went. The other direction,
So you're talking this land now here originally was draining south.
yes,
And now it has to backfall or has to back up and then drain to the west.
well, not really, no, it'll go that way,
It'll still go
Because
south.
but obviously the right angle is slowing that down tremendously.
When did they put that? Yeah, in the 70s. And you're talking-
So that was before the quarry.
That was long before, the quarry's only been there for 20 years probably.
A little more than that. A little more than that, probably 30.
I suppose, no, it didn't also imagine basically, I don't think.
No. No, I'd say 20.
25
It
maybe.
just seems to me that that's part of the problem, is that we're not getting anything to, it's going straight south anymore, but anyway, that's neither here nor there, but that's.
So. Yeah, we kind of left that as a big hole because we didn't know what to do with it until we got here. That quarry area, we kind of are limited on. Do we go around the quarry back to the east and then come up? That's probably the only way we can get to it, or we could try to get it to go backwards. And get it to the river this way, where we put in, but that's. Put in tile that go to the west river over here. It's going the opposite way the land naturally falls, but we can't do it that way. That may be the easier option than trying to send this around the quarry, especially since quarry, it may keep just eating out.
I'm sure it will, yes.
To the west east, and then we've lost it anyways. So along with that quarry situation, I guess that kind of segues into what we're proposing is right now you got this one that was put in the 70s that kind of cut the district. The north ground could drain this way. We're proposing doing the same thing. Ours is a little bit farther up, a little bit farther north. Coming through here, crossing the railroad tracks. And trying to catch these tile, put in a few new branch tiles. To go up along the railroad tracks, because this appeared to be a very wet area, that area over there. And we would still. Any branches that we could leave of the old one, we would leave, even though they're functioning at less half capacity what we recommend, they're still functioning. Let's keep them going. We'll just have ours also functioning in the same areas, but they can provide more localized drainage. And if you take off a large amount of that load from it because you put it on a new tile, that it becomes more efficient than it was before. And that's kind of our area of serving this area here, the middle area, I guess you could call it. And then we've proposed. There's quite a bit of town that drains into this, instead of it draining into and using all this drainage district facilities. Their water is designed to shed differently than egg ground is. It's designed to get it off. They want to get it off as quickly as possible. You don't want your basements underwater. So we are proposing putting in a new tile just directly south of town. There's that kind of that wetland. You're coming down the hill. You don't quite get to the FSA office. Run a tile through there, crossing the railroad tracks, and then snaking it back up north. And that would serve town. So we could effectively cut town off the tile. And the reason we want to do that is town storm sewers typically operate at about a 1-inch coefficient as opposed to a 1/2 inch, because they want to get that water off as quick as possible. Instead of us having to upsize this entire system to a 1-inch to accommodate all these town acres, we can just design a smaller system that has a 1-inch coefficient, make the people in town pay for that. So it'd be only town would be assessed for this portion, for this right here, instead of, and then town wouldn't have to pay for any of this portion down here, vice versa also. So they're able to get it came out cheaper from a dollar standpoint to make one tile to serve a smaller area instead of trying to upsize all of these tiles to serve that tile as well. And then you can split the district up. We also propose in this eastern area, it currently drains into these tiles over here. But there's drainage district number 5 open ditch right over here. We're proposing to cut that off and send it to drainage district number 5. That way we can get those acres off of it to downsize the tile over here a little bit.
It could be its own little drainage district then, or is there another one there that is gonna?
They would still be a part of 14, it just
14.
would have a different outlet. All of them,
A lateral.
yes.
Okay,
So, and then
gotcha.
all of these will have their own assessment schedules. So you're only paying for what you are actually using. So that way these east people will only pay for their little lateral here. They won't have to pay for the main or anything over here. Town would only pay for the town. And this area would have to be, there's several laterals in there, so they would be broken down. And then our south portion, we have here. Since it's taken off quite a bit of the water, Corey. I'm not sure, where's the water go when it gets to, does the Corey water still leave through that same tile or does it get pumped?
No, the active quarry discharge is pumped to the river. Well, most of the time they pump it back north. Into our ponds.
Okay, we were assuming that they were, not using it, so that would be.
Just recirculate, what do you mean, they recirculate?
But I mean, that's what they're doing. For the most of the years, they're just pumping water back to it.
That's-
Keep us full of
Keep,
water.
keep Keenan's levels up.
Keep Keenan's level up. I mean, anyone that's seen it knows it doesn't keep up.
And then we do have a proposed new route for this short segment south of the Corey. That one of all the ones we've looked at, I would say that would be the one I think would be the least important as it's serving, since it was the best, it was the biggest tile put in because when it was originally established, it drained the whole thing. And now it's only gonna be serving lands, far south land, so it's actually not sized, it still doesn't meet the 1/2 inch, but it was close that it's probably worth it to just save the money and use the old tile down there, unless it's in poor condition. Does anyone here own land in this lower portion? Anyone here today?
That's on trend.
That's just way in.
Internals,
That doesn't even cross Van Steenberg's fence line, does it? The new one. Stops at Van Steenberg's. He's not on Zoo, is he?
No,
I didn't see him
no,
on
there's
there.
really nobody on there.
Oh,
Just us, actually.
So we still do have a pros route, partly just because the plans are good for 10 years. You can also take your plans, you could take the reports, you could call up your local tiler and do it yourself. If it sounds like it's just one landowner, we could do that, but having us do it and spending the money in the drainage district. It'd probably be cheaper to do it. Usually it's cheaper to do things yourself if you can get everyone else to help pay for it. That's drainage district for here because people couldn't figure out how to pay for them together. Other questions, and then it sounds like talking to what we need to make a proposed route to change this ground here to go back up north as well. We'll need to add a branch.
I guess I don't know without Wade being here, but you guys have all been a part of this way longer than me. I'm asking you, but that's not even gonna be farm ground. Is it worth the district paying to put in a tile when it's gonna be a 80-foot hole in the
Oh, you're
ground?
talking the whole.
Yeah, cause
East of the quarry?
everything that's below 450th
Mhm.
and north of 440th is getting dug up. I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah, well,
And it's only one landowner, essentially. It's Trent Hills or Falk that have everything, and so,
I guess that's, yeah.
I mean,
So, yeah,
without asking them, I don't know that
I'm gonna spend money and
I
then
wouldn't
dig it
spend
up.
money on it, but if they wanna spend money on it for short term, they probably could, but as a district, I don't know.
we could easily size it for them and not make plans just so that they could do it themselves if they wanted to for a short term.
Guess that could be kind of left up to them.
Basically taking shots and all this, I'm comparing the open ditch 5 and number 5.
We have not shot open ditch number 5 yet.
I question whether that would even work.
Where it just very full well.
Yes, that ditch is
Ditch is
real
flat.
flat, and he's got a private main going through it, that's pretty shallow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was a late effort to try to take some light off. We haven't shot that. We've shot the river in a couple spots. Shot the lake and the intakes in the road ditches. We added that, trying to cut costs, so if it doesn't work, it may not. We probably should take a shot on it before we.
Yeah, I was curious.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
We have a certain main that runs off the north end of that ditch.
They're up to that, where you're proposing now.
Oh, okay, so maybe we don't even propose. What size this is?
Maybe eight, I'm gonna say,
Okay. We were proposing-
You guys have some? If you could get me a copy, I could get it for them.
We were proposing a 15 inch. If there's an 8 and maybe if there's some more tile, then. 2 or 10 maybe.
there's all kinds of.
Sorry.
If you got tile maps, share them with these guys, or get them now, because,
I just never even thought about bringing.
yeah, that'll help this whole cause here.
If you just want
See
to
what's
bring
going
them in-
on.
Bring them in the Val at the office, or supervisor, then she can forward them on to us and then we can make changes. So help us out.
Have you guys looked at the 2013 imagery?
Yes, and yeah, we did try to piece out where we thought, well, we don't know sizes. Grades. So
The other question I had is this redistrict? It's 14 where this added blue line around there, is that? Oh, that isn't that way currently, is it?
don't believe so. We are,
So you're talking about redistricting.
yeah, there have been both,
Could be classified or whatever, you want to make sure that they're either in or out.
yeah, and if.
That's okay, that's the same thing.
Yeah, if there's no improvement done at all over here, this would just be. It would be changed to reflect the current the boundary. The watersheds shown here are not the assessment schedule currently. It's what we look like the watershed boundary should be once if these are proposals are done. And again, if you have tile map showing land tiling out or land tiling in, that can change that watershed.
So I can't remember, are we looking at redistricting this so that we know, so that they know that whether, especially if you're on a boundary, whether you're in or out or.
Well, you'd almost have to, because town's not part of it.
Right,
So I'll go through like the reclass with the annexation.
so that everybody knows where the new. This area out in here. Looks like a secondary, is that an afterthought or?
No, so that was, we found some of that to be draining to these tiles over here. You're talking in this area?
Yeah.
Yeah, what would go into ditch 5?
Yeah,
Right.
so we found that some of it was draining to this. DD14, some of that land was draining to DD14. And then to try to cut down, by the time we were running laterals up to serve that area. We found it was cheaper to try to use DD5 if we could.
If you could.
If we could. We wouldn't have to run it, it wouldn't need to be as large of a tile. Sort of DD5, it would be to serve in the here, so there probably was some land added to it as well then. Because when we made that lateral, but if it doesn't, if it's not built, then that would change that watershed. Right there. So yes, I'll get into our estimated cost, that's this sheet here. For each of these. And these are quick estimates, our actual reports will be more fine tuned. And it'll break it down more, so it probably won't be exactly the same dollar amount. And on here, the first page, we have North Main. The North Main is what we should have, I apologize, we should have labeled these. It's the one that outlets in the river here on the west side of the highway. And it comes up. It crosses the railroad tracks and goes north along the railroad tracks on the east side of the railroad tracks. That's the North Main. And it serves about 1,000 acres. About 1,000 acres drain that tile. And we came up with an average cost per acre of a little less than $700 an acre. For that one. And I'll get into. When we talk about reclassification, I'll get into, once I go through all of these, I'll go into how that will be different for each. That's an average, but it won't be what every single person will be paying. And then we've got on the west side of the railroad, we also have a lateral running along there. And we call that one lateral 4. That's also on that page. That serves about 300 acres, so about $1,000 an acre is what we come up with. The remaining laterals are all about that $800 an acre range. Looking at from this east one, these little ones off of here, and the south main. Lateral 8 is the one that's to the east. And then the town lateral, we have it around $1,500 an acre. It's higher because it needs to have that 1-inch coefficient. So you're gonna see larger pipe diameter than what you would on the other ones. Still an 18-inch, but that's because we were able to cut off so much of it. And when I say that $800 an acre or $1,000 an acre, that's an average. And we talked about reclassification. The entire district will be reclassified. And when we use, not everyone pays the same. You pay based on your benefits. The more you benefit from the tile, the more you pay. And to determine benefit, we use 4 factors. The first factor we use, and I'll just use the main as an example. The closer you are to the outlet, the less you pay. We call that the use factor, and that's because if you're on this, let's say you're on this side of the railroad, you didn't need to cross the railroad and take it all the way up. You could just have got a little outlet here and got your water out of there. So you shouldn't have to pay as much as the guy we to bring that tile all the way up to the top end too, because there was considerable expense to get it up to him. So that's our first factor we use. And then we also use proximity, and that's how close you are to the tile. So if the tile goes right through your property, you can hook directly into it. You have access to it right away. If, let's say, you're this 40 up here, you've got to go through a neighbor or two to get to it. You've got to have your own private tile system that goes to it. You're going to pay less than someone who's directly on it, because they can just hook right into it. They also have the benefit of it being right there. So there's going to be some drainage directly over a tile as well. The third factor is soil wetness. And that's your heavy clay, low-lying soils are going to pay more than your lighter, higher soils. Because they're the ones that really need the drainage. That's what's going to flood out in a storm event. It's probably what drove this whole tiling back 100 years ago. Your higher soils have natural drainage, they don't need as much tile drainage. And then the fourth factor we use is, we call it the runoff factor, and it's where it'll really make an effect in town. That the town parcels are designed to shed that water off quickly. They need that water off quickly. They don't want their basements to flood. They've got a lot of hard surfaces. They don't have 6 inches or 8 inches of kind of fluff soil with roots in it that can hold some of that water. They're designed to pick that water off as quickly as possible. So they're going to pay more per acre than someone who has farm fields. I could see there being adjustment made also for the quarry on this one, because it is a unique. If I've ever done a reclassification at a quarry in it before, but I can see us making an adjustment for that. Because they're big hole in the ground. I don't know if that means they're gonna pay less or. We'll take a look at that. Is there any questions about the classification process? Well, we're not there yet, but how those factors work out. I guess I'll just kind of give an overview of what the process is from here, and what kind of steps we have. We're about probably 90% done with our report, our survey. We'll file the report probably, say, February 1st, somewhere in that time frame. It'll be this winter. We'll have then the board will file with the board. Val will post on the website and Val will have a bunch of copies available at the auditor's office. The board will then set a hearing date at least 30 days out. So probably looking at like a March timeframe hearing. We will all receive a letter in the mail. Every landowner in the district will receive a letter in the mail. They will also be published in the paper. Letting you know, you can come pick up a report at the auditor's office. And that there'll be a public hearing. At or before that public hearing, you can read the report. And you can file an objection. File an objection or a letter of support for the project. This is an improvement, so you guys have a say if you want to do this or not. At that hearing, we'll discuss the project more in depth than we are today. The board can decide to either continue the hearing, ask us to do more information, continue a hearing, or maybe you guys need more time to make a decision. Or they can make a decision that day, and they'll use your objections, your letters of support. One way to kill a project is it's called remonstrance, and it's 50% of the landowners owning 70% of the land write a letter of objection. So let's say in this district, there's 10 landowners. 5 of them show up at the hearing with it's just a handwritten letter. You just write, I don't want this project. My name is so-and-so and I own land here. I don't want this project. You then give it to the board. We tally it up. There's 5 of the 10 landowners voted no. They own 70% of the land. Project's dead. We don't even have a hearing. You guys would show up the first day. Hearing doesn't even take place. I mean, it's just it is a hearing that we open it and then we close it. Or we can go through the whole hearing. At the end of the hearing, you could say, what I'm hearing, I'm not liking. I'm gonna write one out real quick and file it, and that'll still be counted. But you guys still have a no vote up until the moment the hearing's adjourned. And then let's say the opposite takes place, and you guys do want to do this project, which you don't have to do everything. We have all these different laterals. Everyone will be treated separately. So if town wants to do theirs, nobody else does, town can happen, and all the rest of them cannot. You know, vice versa, we could do just this lower portion of the main and just lateral 4. It can be kind of piecemeal together as the landowners would like it to be. Then we will then go to a bid opening. We'll put it out for bids. Now it'll probably be done in about April timeframe, but we get the contract in about a month, so we'll take a look at it. And then we'll open the bids here at probably the supervisor's room. And if the prices at that point are significantly higher than what we had estimated it to be, the project can still die. You guys are welcome to attend the bid opening. And let's say they're 40% higher than what I estimated it to be. The board could look at it and say, no, we're gonna kill this project. Or they could say, what do you think the reason was? We can go out for a rebid. If there's still interest in the project, but let's see if we can kind of try to work this cost down a little bit. Construction will probably start this spring, then after contract is let. Work through the summer and the fall, finish up, how long the project is, probably finish around this time. Hopefully earlier than this, so we can avoid the mud. And then there'll be a completion hearing at that time afterwards, which all landowners who were affected by the construction can come in, and we'll deal with crop damages at that time, especially if we're working through the summer. So any crop damages, corn, soybeans, will be figured in and paid at that time. Any complaints about the construction also be brought at or before that time period. And then we do have the reclassification and annexation. That'll probably be moving on kind of concurrently. Its own can be running, they can be running at the same time. The hearings for that, and everyone will be receive notice for that as well. Any questions about the process or anything I direct you today?
I got a question about the city water jumping into there. Obviously, that's coming in at a higher rate, like you said. A year like this year, we were borderline almost getting by. We had a few rains this spring that damaged a little bit. But if we took that city water off, I mean, that's gonna help
Yeah, that'll help.
that all a lot, right? I mean,
Yes.
so if we could get one project done. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see what that would do for it, taking, if that can get through and to see. But obviously with that type of rain coming in that quick, especially the way the rains are anymore, it doesn't rain half inch anymore, but it'd be interesting to know what that would do to the system. But yeah, no, I think it's. So you will have a breakdown of each one of us landowners, what our costs will be.
At the reclass hearing, there will be that breakdown. You'll be able to know exactly what yours is.
Okay.
But that'll be after the report is filed. Maybe that's a reason that you guys would want to continue that first hearing.
Right.
Is this district sounds. What words you know, but you guys sound at least somewhat interested in this, more so than our last one. There is a part of you that you don't want to get too far ahead. The project's gonna die anyways. You just wasted money on a reclass for tile. You know, why tile? Why do a schedule for lateral 8 if no one wants lateral 8? You just wasted money.
So hypothetically, if we go through with the reclass, you add all of the city property owners, none of them show up to the hearing. Can the people sitting here, can they, because everyone south of town has the bulk of the acre.
Yeah.
They can force the city people to put in,
So if we.
or how does that, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Good question.
Yeah, if we go forward with reclassification, everyone will, the town people will be on their own schedule. And you guys won't get a vote then on what they do. Because that's their tile.
So what if no town people
If
show up?
nobody shows up, I think the assumption is that everyone wants it. That's kind of the.
I mean,
The mayor.
Everybody here wants it.
I'm not trying to be.
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
That's what- because the idea is, if you don't say no, it's kind of assumed you're at least along for the ride. That's the way drainage law is written.
But you'll have that broke down too, to what each
None of those go all
household
the
is
way
gonna
down.
have to pay.
So does drainage law trump city, county?
West to the.
Yes, drainage law.
I just, this,
You can't impede on water.
I know, but there's always this fine line between city and county. And just,
That's where they're talking about.
What's the new development?
Which I understand.
But isn't the new development M14?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Development.
there's a new development planned out there by
By
the
the.
FSA office.
Right. We do plan on stopping at the city county city hall before we leave today.
Well, it's catching it out.
So we're curious what's in the development, what is out there on that.
New housing development.
No, they don't slab.
That's where they're gonna run that tile.
Those are all slabs down there.
Well, the one I know
What do you?
Well, it just-
of would be, they were gonna.
Place in the community, I think the south end of town floods a lot in basements.
I bet it
already.
does. Well, I've
To me, like
been
this
by there.
dumping right into the shell rock down at the edge of the.
Yeah, down.
Yes, one project.
I mean, as you go down the hill, it's coming across there and dumping into the creek.
I don't know that.
That's not.
As far as I know, I think.
It's like a wetland area right at the bottom of the hill on the west side. That's where.
Yeah.
And then we actually get to the river.
The county.
That's why I don't know. Well, what's across the highway? It's in.
Well, yeah, that area down there.
It's in.
And that goes That goes just south of where they wanna put in new stuff, so.
Yeah.
At that point, you're getting enough.
New development.
You're gonna dump it around surface. Really?
That's FSA.
I thought maybe there was a file. there.
I saw
I saw that too.
It's right in the Smith. There's actually.
Oh, is that the, it's like behind Ryan.
There is wastewater treatment, wastewater treatment
Have a little.
in that area there, in those new houses. So you're.
See that.
Off of there. Yes, wastewater is way down there.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say that
This is
right,
FSA.
right there is FSA.
This
Yeah.
is This whole town was street and stop short.
Hey, all sorts of fun.
So it's gonna dump in over him.
At the bottom of the hill, you know, and a slew of individuals.
Barely have time to
But that would save
done.
this area,
But-
all this drainage coming down.
Mhm.
And then considering that it's still within the city limits.
Some of those
Opens
things
as
will
well.
run
Is that just a project the other days?
And.
What's that?
They pay more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
Me neither.
I think
good to-
Good. Then we
No,
do
a couple
this.
special elections just to kind
Cause you know they're gonna come out with that.
What?
You looking to get shot?
Yeah, probably.
This one never used to be here.
Must have a bad battery in my, oh, you're doing it now too.
You've been on all day.
I know, well, mine has too. I just shut mine down a little bit. My battery can't go down and all that. We'll plug it in when we get home. It's got, you gotta be close to that.
I mean, I'd be willing to pay for it.
where our main.
I don't think we know.
Are we ready to look at that?
Oh, good lord. This line.
I'm glad I put
I am. Let's see what Jacob's got.
I do.
It's lunch.
It's been lunch.
Lucky Kenny was here, we would have pizza.
Oh, what do you?
Yeah, shoot, yeah, it's got us for pizza. About 11 o'clock, you'd be out for pizza.
She's been to Casey's already by that time.
I gotta get some meat.
You think it's full up here though, or does it get
Yeah,
up
we'd
here
love
and just- Cause of all the other water, it just stops or
We're still recording.
it's full going there.
Are we,
I think if.
I mean, you guys wanna continue discussing, that's fine, but I think we're gonna close the public hearing if that's okay. You got it. We can, no, we can let her go. I just, if you guys wanna discuss some things and then work with them, that's what. You guys sound like you're interested, at least, like I said. So I'm gonna take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that a motion.
Is there a second?
Yeah, we got, I think it's dug up in this. corner
Before
where
we close.
We need a date.
Bird piled that whole.
No, we don't need a date. It's just an informational hearing. I would like to just, it sounds like there is some interest in this project, at least parts of it.
Yep.
Do we want to, so you've already authorized us to do the classification.
Yep.
Do you want us to do the classification of the proposed tile routes? So that way you can see exactly what it is before you move too far along. Like, we could still file our engineer's report and file the reclassification report.
Do you guys have to annex acres first to?
Does it look like there'll be some added acres?
Yes.
So then, what, at minimum, you'd wanna, well, that's kind of.
Cause I mean, right now, we're talking about it, but the only people that are talking about it are the people who are.
They're in that.
There's a couple hundred extra acres on here that aren't part of a district.
Right.
Just Nothing.
I,
I mean, I don't,
this would be just my suggestion. I mean, at least you have interest, I think, which is good. I think I would go ahead and, I mean, you guys know more about this land absolutely than I do. I mean, if this scenario looks like it could work, I would suggest you get the reclassification done. That way, you know, at that point, you could say, okay, we're gonna do this project in phases too, then we'd make it simple. We gotta get that main in, or we gotta get the city separate. We gotta get,
Yeah, it would make the decision making easier.
it would make your decision making easier and how fast you wanted to move this project or how slow you want
To
to.
compare this to the last group that we brought in, we may not go forward with classification on our proposed routes. So there's the existing routes, make it reclassified still on 48 was that district.
Yeah.
But this one, there's enough interest to do looking at the proposed routes. You know, you're kind of, if you don't do the proposed route, then that classification is kind of worthless.
Well, and
But it does give you some decision-making abilities. And it is good for 10 years.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're gonna decide to do the stages, you've got the reclass already done.
Some of that ground is in no man's land, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not in a district.
it's not in a district, period, like some,
And it's, you guys saying it should be?
well, I mean, what's drawn on the boundary isn't actually the district.
Okay, that's
You know,
just the proposed
district
tile
is
area,
not, like right
right
here.
there.
So like you'd pick up more those in your gorges in it right now.
Yes.
Right,
that's the district.
That's right
Yeah,
now.
we would pick up quite a bit of town,
You'd pick up all,
Pick up town.
and that would be,
Definitely between.
that would be a huge assessment in town for that proposed town route. I think those people in town would wanna know.
So at this point, they haven't been notified.
They have not been notified. No one in town. has
I only
been
sent
notified.
notification to
No,
the
that's-
current.
And you're stopping there
I
on the
just-
way out of town.
We're gonna stop at the city hall and take a look at.
and then you pick up,
80.
And the same token is, in a way, they're dumping their water for nothing right now.
On this map, it's not.
Yeah, right
part of
now.
the district.
That's
There'll
exactly
be
right
their
now.
own separate
DD14
section where they
taking
can
our water
determine
for
if they want to
free.
do that or not.
Does the railroad mess this up at all?
So the railroad, I was just talking to, and we have two proposed railroad crossings.
Okay.
And the railroad does mess that up. Historically, railroads had to pay for their own crossings.
Yeah.
That now, Forest have started to change and they're now siding with the railroads and the railroads no longer required to pay for the crossing, which means it's a district expense.
But they still kind of tell us what to do when we cross.
And
them,
they
too.
also, yeah, they do have to go through their permitting, which I'm just doing one right now and. Expensive, and we'll get back to you. So we have two proposed crossings right now. One is the town one and one is the north, one is that middle main. The north one, we are looking at. I don't know if we'll actually do it because it does sound kind of weird about outletting the tile. There's a culvert existing there, outletting the tile. Right outside property line, or right outside the railroad property. Have it run down that culvert and then put a big intake, and then build a new tile downstream with a big intake on it. So we don't actually have to cross the railroad in that one. We can kind of get around it. And the one to the south, though, we will have to cross the railroad. There is no option to try to push it through a culvert here. We still have to grade. to make
Well,
that
and I know that,
We set up a reclassification, sorry, and then each homeowner in town will know too approximately what it's gonna cost and which to me would be. Short of them objecting to that portion, but I guess it's.
I can say, one of the landowners that's not here. Believes that the existing crossing that's there. North of 450th Street that goes under the tracks has been compromised as not taking my shit. You said that's like a 24-inch.
It's 24 inches,
Right.
70s.
You know, maybe that repair would help. Alleviate some issues on the west side of the tracks, you know, some of the stuff where maybe just a handful of repairs. If we get the city off of it, that might benefit all the rest of you guys by reducing the load and then getting what's there working properly, you know? So to me, I mean,
The 24 inch under the railroad was still at a 1/4 inch, which was a little disappointing, since we're in the 70s.
yeah,
It would be nice if they would put a 1/2 inch in, because if they would put a 1/2 inch in, we would have just stubbed into it from both sides and then.
well, that owner thinks that it's broke or there's something going on there, crushed, whatever, but.
And if it's crushed and broken, the railroad still is not. It's not working.
Yeah, right, yeah, either way, the district's gotta pay for it, but I'm just saying, if you guys know that a repair here will benefit this side a little bit and this side a little bit. Get the city off of it, you know, then the district may be more apt to moving forwards.
They think that 24 is broke under the railroad.
Mike Wilkins does. That goes underneath, so, and I think that's why he has that's why he has
he's thinking
issues
he has issues.
on the west side, because it goes east. And actually comes back south and then across.
He hasn't actually,
Expecting anybody to go in there.
You don't know.
well. with
You gotta
that
get the permits and go through all their hoops to make any repairs, but when you start doing that, well, then there's that $50,000 threshold.
He could dig down, have it dug down and run a camera through there though,
Yeah, I think.
outside the right of way.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the only cross.
That
No,
would
I
prove
think the
that.
crossing, he's,
That'd be a smart thing to
the
do.
crossing he thinks is compromised isn't the one that crosses in the road ditch. It's the
no,
next one.
north of
Next
that,
one.
not the one in the road ditch on 450, north of
But
that.
you can still.
There's another. Cause he has problems, you guys wouldn't see it on the west side, but, or on the east side, he's got problems on the west side.
It is back most of it.
Okay, so.
Eventually would.
he thinks that one's Canada.
Yeah, that's the problem right
He
there.
thinks that one's supposed to
This
right
one's okay.
there.
It's this one.
That one's in the ditch.
He has like 14 acres in there that he,
Got the one.
once every 10 years, he gets a crop.
That would be an easy fix. We would just run a line from here to here.
And you eliminate that?
Oh, eliminate that.
Are you,
That would be an easy fix.
are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Take a motion to, close the public hearing.
Did we need to make a motion
No.
on that part or no?
Oh, as far as
Did we
going
need to
ahead.
make a motion on that?
I-
On what, okay.
Because this is.
Well, yeah, that goes all the way
around.
Yeah, motion to close the public hearing.
Just need to get.
Yeah.
To move in
All we
second,
gotta do is,
all in favor, say aye.
Alright,
We opened it, so we gotta close the whole thing. So now I'll take a
Whatever it
motion to
takes.
close the regular meeting.
yeah, I'll make a motion to close that.
I'll second that.
Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.